All right. Beruchim Abayim. Welcome back. Uh, in this course up until now, we've been studying about what is, or maybe more accurately, what isn't God, right? The primary being that's beyond our ability to grasp. Yet, he created man in his image, in the image of God. What does that mean? That's maybe one of the most fundamental understandings of what man is, what is his purpose, why was he created to begin with. And this is really maybe one of the foundational questions of life. All right, so in Bereshit, it says, Vayomer Elohim, and God said, Na'aseh Adam b'salmenu kidmutenu. Says, we shall create a man in our image, in our likeness. Bisalmenu, by the way, in the plural, in our image, in our likeness. First of all, who is he talking to?
The angels.
Okay, so what does that mean? If he's talking to the angels and he's telling the angels, let us create a man in our image, that already tells us something, that our image isn't just us and God, it's also the angels. All right, but these are two different things. Besalmenu, in our image, kidmutenu, in our likeness. Veirdu bidgat hayam, right, and they will have sovereignty over the fish of the sea, uv'of hashamayim, and the fowl of the sky, ubabehema, and the beasts, uv'chol haaretz, and the entire land. Uvchol haremes haromes al haaretz, and anything that roams the land. Vayivra Elohim et Adam b'salmo. God created man in his image. B'selem Elohim bara'oto. He created man in the image of God. Zachar unkeva bara'otam. Male and female, he created them. All right, so first of all, God is one. The ultimate simplicity, the ultimate unity, right? He says he creates man in his image, and then he goes on to say he created them male and female. Right? That's not united. So what is Tzelem?
Well, a while ago we learned, I'm not sure from you, but from someone, that another translation of image could also be taken as sort of like a shadow, which also
Okay.
which also changes sort of the meaning, because to me, shadow isn't necessarily image. It also has a sort of like a secondary nature to it.
Okay.
So he's the
It wasn't for me, but that's it's a great
I don't
point.
know if it's for me either. I just know it's
a good point.
It's a.
By the way, something interesting is also when the Meraginim are in Eretz Yisrael, right? And they say, no, we can't defeat them, right? What does Yehoshua respond? He says, Sar tzilam me'alehem. He says their tzenem has been removed from them, which tzilam is the literal word over there, is their shadow. That's an excellent point. All right, so what does tzelem mean besides shadow? He says, okay, we're gonna dive a little bit here into the guide for the perplexed, the Moreh Nevuchim. All right, this is Maimonides. They call it his philosophical work. I don't like calling it that, but for the purpose of this class, let's call it that. The first section is like a dictionary. It's understanding the terminology of the allegories in the Tanakh and of Hachamim. So what is Tzelem? Umnam Tzelem hu nofel al hasura hativit. It says that's the natural form. What does that mean? רצונו לומר על העניין אשר בו נתעצם הדבר ונהיה מה שהוא. It's the defining aspect of an object. All right? We have a table. This table is made of wood. This table is white. It has 4 legs, or 2 legs that fold in like 4 legs, right? And the legs are made of they're black, and they're made of iron, or made of metal. All right. None of those characteristics is what makes a table a table. In philosophy, these kind of characteristics are referred to as mikrim, like accidental. If I was going to translate it to English, I don't know what the proper English philosophical term is, but it's attributes that aren't essential to the object. What makes a table a table, or what makes a chair a chair? It's its function, that you're able to put things on it, sit on it at a proper height, comfortable height, and use it as a table. What makes a chair? That you're able to use it as a chair, right? What makes man man? It's not his color, it's not his height, it's not his size. None of these aspects are essential to what makes a man a man. Vehu amitato, and this is his essence. Ma'asher hu hanimtzahu, that essence, that essential quality. Asher ha'inyan ba'adam, that is in man. What is this essential quality in man? Hu asher ba'avuro tiyeh hasaga ha'enoshit. It's that part of man that has an intellectual capacity. Mipnei hasaga zot hasichlit, and because of this mind, this intellectual capacity of man, Ne'emar bo, it says regarding man, B'Tzelem Elohim bara oto, that he was created in the image or in the essence of God. Right? If you go back to our previous class, right, there's the infinite being. He is united in every single way. He emits, he emanates this knowledge, right? Our capacity to understand that knowledge or to acquire that knowledge is what makes man man. Now, I want to, before we continue, I just want to a little introduction. Maimonides has been
Ashley,
given
in
a
about
reputation.
in about 2 minutes, make sure you give Ashton his turn, okay?
Maimonides has been given a reputation as the he only believes in the human intellect. He sanctifies human intellect above anything else. He's the super rational approach to Judaism. And we're going to see that anyone who says that, maybe even 90% of the Maimonideans out there, they're missing a very key aspect of Maimonidean philosophy. All right? That is one aspect. And through this entire class today, we may change our understanding of what that means, this intellectual capacity of man. All right? How do you check it? All right?
Yeah.
Is this image of God then something that all of humanity has? Is it genetic? Is it something you either have or you don't? Is it something you can lose? All these things we're going to dive into today. And this, by the way, what we just read, that's the first chapter of the Moreh Nevuchim. All right, and if you look at the first chapter as the introduction, and we're going to end this class with the last chapter of the Moreh Nevuchim, and the last chapter you can look at as the conclusion. This is basically his entire philosophical work is addressing this one question. What is man? What is the essence of man? Hilchot Yesodei Torah. Last week we studied the second chapter of Hilchot Yesodei Torah. All right, we finished the second chapter. Now we're going to the fourth chapter. Nefesh kol basar hisurato shenatan lo ha'el. It says every living being has something that's called a nefesh. What is a nefesh? Well, he defines that in his introduction to Avot. I'm just gonna summarize it very quickly. Every living organism has his hardware and it has the software, the operating system that runs it. All right? We have a body. It's made up of many organisms within, has many organs. There is some sort of operating system that tells our body what to do with the food that we eat, right? How to turn it into energy, how to dispose of the excess and leftovers. It tells our brains how to process everything that we sense around us through sight, through hearing, everything that we feel through smell, right? It's in charge of the imaginative faculty, and man's nefesh also has an extra aspect of man's intellect, right? Nefesh kol basar, the nefesh of every living being, hi surato shenatan lo ha'el. That is, defines the essence of that being. What makes a dog a dog? It's his ability to smell and detect certain things, to run fast. He has hardware that's designed for it, and he has software that can operate that hardware and function as a dog. That's what makes a dog a dog. והדעת היתרה המסויה בנפשו של אדם, and this extra intellect that is unique to the nefesh of man, he surat ha'adam hashalem b'da'ato. That is the essence of a man who is shalem b'da'ato, whole in his da'at, in his intellect, in his understanding. We'll try to understand what that means soon. But it's not just the intellect of man. It's not just hadat hayitera hamisuya benafsho shel adam, right? It's the essence of man who is shalem b'da'ato, who has his da'at is perfected. ועל צורה זו נאמר בתורה נעשה אדם בצלמנו כדמותנו. And on this aspect of man is what the Torah says, we shall make man in our image, in our likeness. כלומר, what does that mean? שתהיה לו צורה היודעת ומשגת הדעות שאין להם גולם, right? He has this capacity to understand these deot, these intellects, שאין להם גולם, that have no physical form, כמו המלאכים, such as the angels. That's just one example that he's giving of what are these intellects that have no form. That they are, shehem surah belo golim, ad sheyidme lahen, until he resembles them. What does that mean? Any suggestions?
It implies we can
Can what?
look like them,
Look like them?
act like them.
Okay, I think we're already getting a bit closer.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Deot she'en lehem golim, intellects that have no physical form. I think in modern English we would call it abstract ideas. In Hebrew we'd say musagim mufshatim in modern Hebrew. Abstract ideas, such as love. What is that? It has no physical form, right? Mercy. What is that? It has no physical form. It says man has this ability to think in abstract terms, right? Understand abstract ideas, such as the angels, ad sheidme lahen, until he resembles them. What does that mean, until he resembles them? We'll see. We'll see. ואינו אומר על צורה זו הניכרת לעיניים שהיא הפה והחותם והלסתות ושאר רושם הגוף שזה תואר שמה. Says, and when he says Besalmenu Kidmutenu, he's not talking about the physical structure of man, right? His eyes, his nose, his jaw, and any aspect, physical aspect of man. The proper term for that in Hebrew isn't Tzelem or Dimut. The proper term for that in Hebrew is To'ar. ואינה הנפש המצויה לכל נפש חיה. And it's not the nefesh that every living being has, as we said before, שבה אוכל ושותה ומוליד ומרגיש ומהרהר, right? The nefesh that's responsible for what to do with the food that you eat, right? And procreating and dividing cells and feeding and even imagining and thinking. Ela hadde'ah, says the knowledge or the intellect. She surat nefesh, that is the essence of the nefesh. Not even the essence of man, it's the essence of the nefesh. Uv surat nefesh, הכתוב מדבר בצלמנו כדמותנו. When he says in our image, in our likeness, he's talking about the essence of the nefesh of man, which is what makes man man. ופעמים רבות תיקרא זאת הצורה, נפש ורוח, right? Many times you'll come across, it'll refer to this aspect of man as the nefesh or as the spirit or as, today most people will refer to it as the neshama. By the way, in Maimonides' terminology, neshama is something else completely, right? But he says, you need to be careful when you come across these terms, because these are interchangeable terms. Sometimes it's talking about the programming of man. Sometimes it's talking about the programming of an animal. Sometimes it's talking about man's intellect. Sometimes it's talking about this infinite life of man, right? This neshama, what we call today neshama, sometimes is referring to that, right? And so you need to be careful when you come across these terms, not to confuse them. You need to figure out what it's talking about based on the context. לפיכך צריך להיזהר בשמותן שלא יטעה אדם בהן וכל שם ושם ילמד בעניינו. Based on the context, you'll know what nefesh it's referring to when it says the word nefesh. Okay. So, is this something that everybody has?
Nefesh? Yes, I guess.
Well, nefesh is also the animals have. Also the vegetables have. Also flowers. Everything has a nefesh. Every living organism has a nefesh. But this image of God,
Only man.
huh?
Only man.
Only man, but every man
Is there a different definition, different word
for Tzelem Elohim.
for the nefesh, the sort of different nefesh?
So this aspect of the nefesh.
Right.
Okay. Well, the Kuzari, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, just refers to it as Ha'inyan Ha'ilahi, the divine thing, or divine aspect of man. All right, we're jumping towards the end of the More. It says, Halo bi'arti lecha. I have already explained to you, but this is the third section, chapter 51. He had many chapters to explain this throughout the More. Shezeh hasechim, that this intellect, asher shafa alenu ma'ashem yit'aleh, that has overflowed to us from God, right? In last week's class, we talked about that mechanism of this overflowing of intellect, right? That this overflowed from God. Hu hadibuk asher benenu ubeno. This is the connection between man and God. V'hareshut netuna lecha. And you have the ability. Im tirtze lehazek hadibuk hazeh ta'aseh. If you want to strengthen this connection between you and God, go ahead, you can do that. Ve'im tirtze lahlisho me'at me'at. And if you want to weaken this connection between you and God, ad shetafsikehu, even to a point where you completely disconnect it, terminate that connection, ta'aseh, you can do that too. ולא יתחזק זה הדיבוק רק בהשתמשך בו באהבת השם. And how do you strengthen this connection between you and God? It's only by using this connection, this sechel, to ahavat Hashem, in love of God, which means what? So the mitzvah of ahavat Hashem was avodat Hashem, but also to study and to learn God as much as possible. ושתהיה כוונתך אליה כמו שביארנו. Right? And your intention should always be, for everything that you do and everything that you study, should be to deepen this connection with God. וחולשתו תהיה בסומך מחשבתך בדבר זולתו.
As much as you know him, so you can love him better.
Right? אם מעט מעט, as we say in הלכות תשובה, the more knowledge you have of God, right? אם מעט מעט, if it's little, it'll be little. ואם הרבה, הרבה. And if you have a lot, you'll have more profound and stronger connection.
But it's also possible to totally disconnect.
Yes,
That's strange thought.
it's possible to be completely disconnected from God. וחולשתו, and weakening, תהיה בסומך מחשבתך בדבר זולתו. How do you weaken this connection? It's by not thinking of God at all, having it completely out of your consciousness. You're always preoccupied with distractions, and God is never in your mind. And by the way, the next book after Sefer Hamada, the first book of Maimonides on Halakha, this next book is Sefer Ahava, the book of love. And it's all about sisit, tefillin, mezuzah, berachot, tefillah. All the purpose of all of these mitzvot is to bring God into your consciousness on a daily basis throughout the day. You have your tefillin on you, it's reminders of God's presence. You pass by the mezuzah, reminders of God. It's all these things that the Chachamim put throughout our day to stop for a second. You're going to eat, stop for a second, be mindful of what you're doing, what you're eating. They say, Beracha, right? Boreh peri ha'es, Boreh peri ha'adama. It's all to bring God into your consciousness as much as possible. So, as you pointed out, this connection can be terminated. What is the status of a person without this connection? If it can be terminated, can it also be gained? And if so, how do you get it? We already saw that this thing it's not in man's DNA, right? Right? Because it has nothing to do with the physical form of man. Nothing changes in your DNA when you lose this intellect or this image of God. So chapter 7 of the Moreh defines the word yelid, child or begot or born. Ha'inyan muvan bezot hamilah yadua, right? The first simple understanding of this word is very known. Zu haleda, and that is giving birth. V'yaleduno banim. Right? And he gave birth to sons, to boys. Vehush'ala od, and this term was borrowed for something else as well. L'chidushe ha'machshavot is for giving birth to an idea. A person has an idea, he's called the father of that idea. Uma sheyehayvuhu min haddeot ve'sevarot. He gave birth to a lie. What does that mean? He gave birth to a lie. He didn't get his wife pregnant, and his wife gave birth to. What does that mean? It means he invented a lie, and that lie spread. כמו שתרגם יונתן בן עוזיאל, as Yonatan ben Uziel says on this pasuk, נימוסי עממיה אזלין, that they followed in the the customs of the Goyim, that was v'yalad sheker. That's how he explains that pasuk. Ve'al zeh ha'inyan, and in accordance to this meaning, mi shelimed ish inyan echad, someone who educated someone else, ve'ho'ilehu da'at, and he taught him an idea. Ke'ilu holid ha'ishahu. It's as if he gave birth to that person, ba'asher hu ba'al hada'atahu, because he is the father of that idea or of this philosophy that this person is following now. ובזה העניין נקראו תלמידי הנביאים בני הנביאים. And this is when the Tanakh refers to the students of the prophets, it refers to them as Bnei HaNevi'im, the sons of the prophets. כמו שהבאר בשיתוף שם בן, as I will explain when we get to שיתוף שם בן, and we also see this in the Midrashim of Chazal, one of the commentaries, אל תקרי בנייך אלא בונייך, right? It says, Banim elu talmidei hachamim. If you've heard that, what does it mean, Banim? Banim is the sages. Why? It's because they are students or the spiritual sons of the hachamim. Ubezot hash'ala, and in accordance to this meaning, it says, referring man, Vaychi Adam shelushim u'umat shana. It says that Adam lived 130 years. Vayoled bidmuto kesanmo, and he gave birth in his image, in his likeness. This is Adam at the age of 130. Who is this talking about? Anyone know? No. Adam's sons. Which son? This is Shet, his third son. וכפר קדם לך עניין צלם אדם ודמותו. מהו? I already explained to you what Tzelem is. וכל מי שקדמו לו מן הבנים, all of his previous sons before this third son, Shet, לא הגיע אליהם הצורה האנושית באמת. They didn't live up to their full potential as man. They weren't really men in this sense. He's saying that Cain in heaven did not have the image of God. The Kozari, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, says something similar. His difference of opinion with the Rambam is only regarding heaven. He says heaven had Tzelem Elohim. They both agree that Cain didn't. That means essentially they both agree that Tzelem Elohim isn't biological. It's not hereditary.
It depends on what?
It could only be acquired through education.
Like Dmut is natural, but Tzelem is with education.
Well, we haven't seen Demut yet. אשר הוא צלם אדם ודמותו, הנאמר עליה בסלם אמונים ובדמותו, ומנם שת, however, Seth, כאשר לימדהו, when he educated him, והבינהו, right, and he explained to him, ונמצא שלם השלמות האנושי, right, and then he became the perfection of man, was נמצא שלם, is that we saw earlier. What does that mean? Right? Surat ha'adam shalem b'da'ato. When you acquire the right knowledge, the right da'at, right? Only then, amar bo vayoled bitmuto kesalmo. Only then it said regarding Adam that he gave birth in his image, in his likeness. Ukfar yada'ata. And you should already know. כי כל מי שלא הגיע לזאת הסורה, אשר ביארנו עניינה, that all these people who have not attained this essential aspect of man, הוא אינו איש, he's not man, אבל בהמה על צורת איש ותבניתו, he is a homo sapien, you could call him, right? He is a modern man, maybe, with the structure of a human. אבל, however, יש לו יכולת על מיני ההיזק וחידוש הרעות, מה שאין כן נשאר בעלי חיים. He says, he has the ability to cause tremendous harm and damage, what all the other animals don't have. כי השכל, you want to say something?
What does it mean? Like, you have the יכולת, the ability to...
He has the ability.
לתקן.
Huh?
To what? To...
He has the ability to cause tremendous damage, to bring the world into world wars and conflicts, never-ending conflicts, to put obstacles before you, to trap you. כי השכל והמחשבה, because this brain, this intellect that he has, שהיו מוכנים לו להגעת השלמות, אשר לא הגיע, right? That he received for the purpose of acquiring this human perfection, which he didn't acquire, ישתמש בהם במיני התחבולות. He'll use that intellect to set traps and to cause harm. המביאות לרע, that bring evil. והוליד הנזקים, and cause damages, כאילו הוא דבר ידמה לאדם או יחקהו, like he's just imitating, impersonating a human being, a man. וכן היו בני אדם הקודמים לשת, and so were the sons of Adam, or the sons of man, the humans, before Shet. ואמרו במדרש, and the Midrash says, כל אותן ק"ל שנה, all those 130 years, שהיה אדם נזוף בהם, היה מוליד רוחות. Right, that man, during those 130 years since the fall of man, since his sin, right, until he did teshuvah at the age of 130, during those years, man was giving birth to ruhot. Ruhot, probably most people would say ghosts. What does he say? It's sonolomar shedim, right? Demons. This is what are demons? According to Maimonides, demons are evil people. They are people without the image of God.
Demon is not creature, it's not an entity, it's an intermediate.
So according to the Rambam, a demon is a person, like anyone else. Just some people who are educated, and we'll see what that means, educated, they have the image of God, and they are kemo malachim, like the angels. And some people, they have this ability for evil, right? And they don't have this image of God, and they are defined here in this chapter as shedim.
How is the term to say demon?
What's that?
What's the term the vocabulary say that translating the say demon?
It's the word shed, shedim.
There is something.
Yeah, so it says this idea of demons and angels, this is not, don't think of it as some sort of, like the Christians do, there's some sort of spiritual entities and they come. No, this is, these are people.
Are these demons born without a connection with Hashem?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
How do you acquire Tzelem Elohim?
And the connection.
Huh?
How you acquire the connection?
How do you acquire it?
By mitzvot, by searching for Hashem, right?
Okay, but you could search and go the wrong way.
Yeah, doing the right things.
How do you acquire it? Education. You need to be educated by someone who has it. We'll see what that education means soon.
The measurement,
Rav.
What?
the measurement for this knowledge should be like midot. The midot.
We'll see.
What's the singular for shedim?
Shed.
Oh, okay. Very close.
Was there a question on Zoom?
Yes. So, based on what my Maimonides is saying, is that because my thought process was demon, like people who are unalive. So is he's saying that demons are people who are alive, but they are without the image of God?
Yes.
Can it be both, or it's the people who are
No, it
alive?
says Shadim. What does that mean? Not alive. Means
Like
the
dead.
life, true life, is that connection with God.
Oh, Livev.
Yeah, it's people. It's people that we could be surrounded by,
Oh
right?
wow.
That they look just
Wow.
like us.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
However, they lack this essential property of a proper education. And we'll see what that means soon. It's not any bimbo or bozo will say that he has no image of God. Right? We'll see what that means.
What's it? Resh Lamed and Kuf Lamed.
Resh Lamed means Resono Lomar. Kuf Lamed is 130.
Okay. Retsono Lomar.
Yeah.
Like
Or Resoni
will
Lomar.
Lomar.
It means like what this means.
Okay.
It's a way of saying what this means shortly. Yes?
And according to Rambam, the skin will be for the Masikin, according to Rambam.
Mazikim, it's people doing these
Only for
damages.
people.
Yeah, it's people.
Shadim, Rukot,
You can also think of mazikim, sometimes they refer to midrashim, they could be synonymous with like bacteria and things like that. So if you were able to see them, they'd be so scary. It's like, yeah, if you put them under a microscope and you see them, they really look very scary. And they're all around us, right?
But according to Rambam, it's also this kind of person that lack of this.
It could be, yeah. זה הלכה, הלכות תלמוד תורה. כשם שחייב אדם ללמד את בנו, same as a person must educate his son, כך הוא חייב ללמד את בן בנו. He also too, he needs to educate his grandson, his son's son. שנאמר, as it says, והודעתם לבניך ולבני בניך, right? You should teach your sons and your sons' sons. ולא בנו ובן בנו בלבד. And the mitzvah isn't just to teach Torah to your son or your son's son, ella, however, mitzvah al kol hacham v'hacham miYisrael lelamed et kol talmidim. Right? Every hacham has a mitzvah to teach any student that comes to learn from him. Af al pi she'enan banav, even if they are not his sons. How do we know this? Shne'emar, as it says, v'shinantam levanecha. It says, and you shall recite it to your sons. How does that mean everybody? It says, from our tradition, we know that this means banecha elu talmidecha. Your sons, these are your students. Shatalmidim kiruim banim, right? That your sons are called students, or that your students are called sons. Shenemar ve'yisu b'nei nevi'im. Imken, if so, why does it say lama nistaval beno val ben beno? Why is there mitzvah to teach your son and your son's sons if you have to teach anybody anyways? It's just a matter of priority. Lahagdim beno leven beno, first teach your son, then your grandson, and then anybody else. Right? All right. So we see this image of God isn't something genetic. It's something that needs to be acquired. You can have it, you cannot have it. If you don't have it, you can acquire it. If you do have it, you can lose it. And it's not an on and off switch, it's more like a volume switch. You can strengthen and deepen this image of God, right? And you can weaken it. It's all up to you.
Mitzvot are for, no?
Yes? Yes, that is what mitzvot are for.
So, sorry, says that if there's a case, how is the people born the Jew?
That's a good question. That is
People born the Jew, it doesn't do anything, doesn't know anything.
that's a good question, and that's the topic of next week's class. To be continued. Next week. V'yomer Adonai Elohim, and God said, Hen ha'adam hayaki ahad mimenu, man shall be one like us, the da'atu vara, that he knows right from wrong, right good from evil. Ve'ata, and therefore, pen yishlach yado, we are worried that he will send forth his hand. Velakach, and he shall take Gam me'etz ha'chaim, from the tree of life as well. Right? He already destroyed the tree of knowledge. Now we're worried that he's going to send his hand forth to the tree of life, ve'achal v'chai le'olam, and he shall eat and live forever, for eternity. Whatever that means. We will have an entire class dedicated to this pasuk a little bit further down the line. But what's interesting is how Maimonides reads this pasuk, how he punctuates it. Reshut l'chol adam netuna. Every man has freedom of will, free choice. Im rasa lehatot asmo lederech tova. Right, if he wants to go down the good path, v'lios tzaddik, and to be righteous, hareshut beyado. Right, he has the right to do so, or the ability to do so. V'im rasa lehatot asmo lederech ra'ah, and if he wants to go down an evil path, v'liod rasha, and to be wicked, hareshut beyado, he can. Hu shekatuv b'Torah. This is what the Torah says. Hen ha'adam haya ke'ahad mimenu l'da'at tov v'ra. Says, what does that mean? Man shall be one like us? He says, no. He says, don't read it like that. Hen ha'adam haya ke'ahad. He shall be unique. In what? Mimenu. From himself. L'da'at tov v'ra. To know right from wrong. To decide right from wrong. Klumar, meaning, hen min ze shel adam haya yachid ba'olam, ve'en min sheni dome lo b'ze ha'inyan. Man is unique in the world. There is no other creature in the world, not below him, not above him, that he is unique in this. Sheyehu me'atzmo, that he himself, b'da'ato u'machshavto, in his thought, in his reasoning, yodeh hatov v'hara, right? He can know, we'll see what that means, know good and evil. Ve'oseh kol ma she'u hafez, and he does whatever he wants. Ve'en mi she'yakev beyado mil'asot hatov o hara, and there's no one holding him back from doing either right or wrong. V'chevan shekenhu, and because of this, Pen yishlach yado. We're worried that he's going to send forth his hand and destroy the tree of life. Hen ha'adam haya ke'ahad, is unique, mimenu, himself, able to acquire this da'at tov or this da'at ra. And what is da'at?
No.
Okay, that's what we would think it means, at least up until now. But now the Rambam is going to flip everything over. What is that?
Three concepts for thought.
Isn't that understanding?
Understanding, opinion. All right, let's see this halakha, Hilchot Deot. The Rambam has a whole piece of halakha called Hilchot Deot. The halachot of Da'at. All right?
Yes.
The first halakha in Hilchot Deot. Deot harbe yesh lechol echad ve'echad b'bnei Adam. Right? Man has many, many different deot. V'zu meshona mizu ve'rechoka mimenu beyoter. And this da'ah is different from this da'ah, and they can be very, very far apart. Right? You have people they have conservative opinions and they have liberal opinions. Right? They couldn't be further away from each other. You have left and you have right. Right? No, that's not what he's saying. Yesh Adam shu ba'al hema. There is a man who is always angry. Ko'es tamid. He has rage. V'yesh Adam, and there's a person sheda'ato miyushevet alav, that his mind is settled. Ve'eno ko'es kelal, and he never gets angered. Ve'im yichas yichas ka'as me'at bekama shanim, and if he ever gets angry, he gets slightly angry once in a few years. יש אדם שהוא גבל לב ביותר. There's a man who is arrogant. ויש הוא שפל רוח ביותר. And there's a man who is humble. Very, very humble. ויש הוא בעל תאווה. And there's a person who has tremendous ta'ava, right? He likes to, what's the word?
Lust.
Could be lust. לא תשבע נפשו מהלוך בתאווה. He's never satisfied, his nefesh is never satisfied from the lust that he acquires. ויש הוא בעל לב טהור, and someone who's very, very pure heart, מאוד, ולא יתאווה אפילו לדברים מעטים, and he has no need or want even for simple things. He can live in a small apartment, sleep on the floor, and he's happy. ויש בעל נפש רחבה, לא תשבע נפשו מכל ממון העולם. There are people who are very greedy, will never be satisfied no matter how much money they get. What is that?
Like a unique identity, something like that.
What's he describing over here? I thought he was talking about opinions. I thought he was talking about intellect.
That each person is different.
It seems like character traits.
Character traits. Deot, all of Ilchot Deot is about perfecting your character. He doesn't talk about acquiring knowledge in Ilchot Deot. He talks about one thing, how to perfect your character.
It's connected to midot, like da'at, midot.
Look, I skipped one source. I skipped one source. We're gonna go back now. This is not Rambam, this is Tanya, this is Chabad. All right?
Yes, yeah, it's very different.
But look how precise he is here in describing this idea of what da'at is. He says, Ve'adat milshon ve'adam yada et hava. What does da'at mean? It says, it's like the pasuk, and man knew, Adam knew Eve, his wife, right?
Sexual relation.
Huh?
Sexual relation.
Relations. Why? What does that have to do with da'at? It says, V'ulashon hitkashrut v'ithabrut. It's connection. It's connecting something. Shemekasher da'ato, that he connects his intellect, his mind, bekesher amitz v'chazak me'od, right? That he connects his intellect very strongly, b'chozik, b'gdulat en sof baruch hu, thinking of God, right, or the infinite nature of God. Ve'eno mesiach hada'aton, he doesn't get distracted from God. Because even if a person is very intelligent and smart, Bigdulat Ensof Baruch Hu, and you know what, he understands philosophy and mathematics, and he's able to understand the concept of infinity. If he doesn't connect himself to this understanding, he's not going to bring into his soul real love and fear of God. But just imagination, imaginary concepts. Therefore, what is da'at? Hada'at hu kiyum hamidot v'hayutan. That is the midot. It's living the midot and living in accordance to a certain teaching.
Is that only theoretical? It's also practical.
What's that?
Like that is not only a theory, like something practical.
Exactly. Because theory, that's something all humans have access to. What is Tzelem Elohim? It's emulating that understanding those teachings in your life. It's living a certain way. That's what. That's how you can identify someone who has Tzelem Elohim or not. You can identify it by his behavior, without asking him what he knows about the world.
the litmus test of returning the car to the, when you go to shopping,
Yeah,
you return the car.
there you go.
Litmus test for.
There you go. It's a litmus
quality
test.
things. It's the same thing with the whatever.
So what does that mean? Surat ha'adam hashalim b'da'ato, that we said earlier, the Tzelem Elohim is not just his ability to understand abstract concepts, right? He said it's Surat ha'adam, it's the essence of a man, shalem b'da'ato, who has the right de'ot, who has perfected de'ot. And it's not that he has perfect knowledge of the universe and of the world, it's that he embodies a perfect philosophy, is that he behaves properly. That's really what it comes down to.
So would this be perfect knowledge or perfect understanding? The perfection you're talking about.
It's more about behavior. That's what it comes down to ultimately. Meaning you can be ungifted, but if you have a proper behavior, that means you're being aligned with God's intellect. All right, we're going to see it a little bit deeper here in this concluding chapter of the Moreh Nevuchim. All right, the guide for the perplexed. He brings this pasuk, Ku Amar Hashem. Right, this is what God says, the speech of God. Al yitalel hacham b'chokhmato. Man should not take pride in his wisdom. He says, wait a minute, man is all about the intellect. At least that's what Maimonides claim about Maimonides. How is he concluding his philosophical work with the pasuk, man shouldn't take pride in his intellect?
No, the Kuzari, if he agrees with the Kuzari, the Kuzari talks about.
I think the difference between Maimonides and Kuzari is very, very nuanced and subtle. There aren't any real big issues that they depart on. Man should not take pride in his courage and his strength. And a wealthy person should not take pride in his wealth. If someone wants to take pride in something, it should be in this. Right? Understand and know me. For I am God. Ose chesed, mishpat, uzdaka ba'aris. That I do charity and I do chesed and I do justice in the world. Ki be'elle hafasti ne'um Hashem. Because this is what I want. Right? The speech of God, the word of God. Ne'um Hashem. And look how he goes on to praise Jeremiah. Says, see how concise this statement is and how perfect is the person saying it, Jeremiah. And how we didn't miss one little thing that we've been discussing this entire book. This is the last chapter, the 54th chapter of the third section of the Guide for the Perplexed. This is how he concludes it. After explaining this pasuk and everything that it explains, all right, nashlim kol ma shu kolel. I'll explain everything that this includes. וזה שלא הספיק לו בזה הפסוק לבאר שהשגתו יתעלה לבד היא הנכבדת שבשלמויות. He says what Jeremiah here is saying is that even the understanding of God, we'll call it the theoretical understanding of God itself, isn't what's the perfection of man. כאילו הייתה זאת כוונתו, because if this is what he intended, he would have said, right? This is what a person should take pride in. Haskel ve'yadoa oti, knowing me. And Nekuda, period. That's it. Sof pasuk. Or he would have said, know that I am one, and that's it. Okay, any timuna, I have no physical form. Okay, in kamoni, there's nothing that resembles me. Or something like that. אבל אמר, but he said, שאין יתעלה רק בהשגתו ובידיעת דרכיו ותאריו. It's not enough to know me and understand me. רצונו לומר פעולותיו, right? His actions and how he behaves in the world, right? It's not enough to be the best philosopher and scientist. כמו שבארנו, right, as we already explained in the previous chapter, the last week, ובאר לנו בזה הפסוק שהפעולות ההם, right? He's explaining to us that those actions that he wants to be known by, הם חסד, משפט וצדקה. Justice, charity, and חסד. והוסיף עניין אחר צריך מאוד, alright? ואחר כך השלים העניין ואמר כי באלה חפשתי נאום השם, right? And then he said, this is what I want, right? The word of God. ואמר בחסד במשפט וצדקה חפשתי. This is I want חסד משפט וצדקה. What does that mean? רצונו לומר, רש למד, שכוונתי שיצא מכם חסד משפט וצדקה בארץ. He says, I want you to do chesed, mishpat, tzedakah. Not just to understand me in terms of chesed, mishpat, tzedakah. He said, afu rachum, afatay rachum. Right, he gives us the 13 midot when he's up there in Mount Sinai. When Moshe is up in Mount Sinai, he gives him the 13 midot. Rachum, hanun, erech, apayim. He says, why do we need to know this? Because this is how you need to behave. The image of God means that the same way that God behaves, we are able to behave in that way as well. בדיוק. זו קידושת מצוות. Do the mitzvot. As we already explained with the 13 midot, כי הכוונה להידמות בהם is to resemble them. We're back to demut. What does that mean, demut? He says Tzelem is the image of God, but he made us in his image and in his likeness, in his demut. Lehidamot bahem, to mimic him, his actions. V'shinrech al darkam. Im ken, therefore, hakavana shezacha b'zeh pasuk. The purpose of this pasuk, sheshlemut ha'adam asher bo yitalel be'emet. What is the perfection of man? What is this essential quality of man that we call the image of God? ולהגיע אל השגת השם כפי היכולת is to acquire an understanding of God as much as we can with our limited intellect, everyone with his own intellect, his own limitations, whatever he can achieve. ולדעת השגחתו בברואיו, and to learn how God provides for his creations, בהמציאותם והניגותם, how he guides them, how he keeps them alive. וללכת אחרי השגה ההיא, and to follow in his path, בדרכים שהתכוון בהם תמיד לעשות חסד ומשפט וצדקה. In a way that we can learn for ourselves too how to do chesed, mishpat, u'tzedakah in the world, להידמות בפעולות השם, to mimic God's behavior. And this is the concluding chapter of the rationalistic Maimonides philosophical book. And this is a halacha. It says, וכן הרב שאינו הולך בדרך טובה. There's a rabbi, a teacher, but he is not going a right path. He is brilliant. He knows the entire Torah. He's a great philosopher and he's a great scientist as well. Even though he's brilliant mind, and the whole nation needs him, he needs his instruction. You don't go to study from him until he corrects his ways. As it says, right? The lips of the priest, of the Kohen, yishmeru da'at, they preserve the da'at, whatever we understood da'at to be. V'torah yivakshu mipihu, and they shall ask him for Torah, to teach Torah. Why? Ki malach Hashem sevaotu, because he is the malach of God. Amru Hachamim, the Hachamim said, Im harav dome lemalach Hashem sevaot, if the teacher resembles an angel of God, Torah yevakshu mipihu, then you shall go and learn Torah from him. V'im lav, but if not, al yevakshu Torah mipihu. Don't go study Torah from him. So, lehiddamot, im harav dome lemalach Hashem sevaot, right? That is the demut. He created man b'Tzelem Elohim ubidmuto, right? Na'aseh Adam b'Salmenu, in our image. That is the ability to understand these abstract concepts of what? Of Chesed, Mishpat, and Tzedakah, right? Udmuto is lidamot bahem, to see how we can mimic God's behavior in the world by doing these midot that God guides the world with ourselves. And that is the essence of man. That is the purpose of man. Real knowledge of God isn't intellectual. Real knowledge of God is reflected in your character. And this is how Shlomo opens up his book of Mishle. Mishle Shlomo ben David Melech Israel, right? The parables of Shlomo, the king of Israel. Lada'at chokhmah u'musar, to know wisdom and musar, right? And ethics. Lehavin imre binah. Lakahat musar haskel. Says Yishma Hacham, right? A wise person will learn, he will be educated, the Yosef Lekach, and that'll teach him how to behave. He will learn what's the meaning of this story, right? How do I behave from this? It says Yirat Adonai Reshidat, right? The fear of God is the inception of knowledge. That's where knowledge comes from, right? We say Yesoda Yisodot ve'amuda chokhmot, right? The foundation, the pillar of all pillars, the da'at sheyesham masur rishon, is to acknowledge the existence of this primary being. He says it's not just the acknowledgement of this primary being, but Yirat Adonai Reshidat, right? Da'at itself needs to be divinely inspired. It says your midot, your dat, that's really right reflected in your yirat shamayim, in your fear of God. Chokhmah u'musar evinim bazu. Wisdom and ethics is something that is despised by the foolish.
It's interesting because someone is proving that he's doing Hashem, like by his acting, not by.
Exactly.
That's really connected.
Exactly. Fear of God is reflected in a person's behavior, not in his intellect.
Well, I was listening a bit what you said, like when you learn from people, like have to be represented like an angel. When you learn from stuff from a rabbi or somebody, I think the Rambam said, I don't remember very well, that people have to be, seeing the rabbis as an example, like as an angel, because
Yeah, that was the halakha we read
But,
before.
the question is, for example, I'm learning from the person like Lashon Hara, but these people, this rabbi doing Lashon Hara, you see he doing. So in this case, is not to listen the person. Can be, or it's
So you
what is
can't learn Hilchot Lashon Hara from someone who's always doing Lashon Hara.
But it's contradicted to this statement that you learn from people that you see as an example, like angel.
Right.
But you can see that the person is angel if he's not doing what he said.
That's why you have to find a teacher that does.
We're human, we're not completely perfect, you know.
You have to find a teacher. So Vayoled bitmuto keselmo is talking about Adam. Adam said after 130 years he gave birth in his tzelem. During 130 years that he was before he did teshuvah, right? Anyone he educated wrong. He gave them bad midot. You need to find somebody who has good midot to learn from. All right, so that's it for, not for today, but for this class. Little thing to you. Stop the recording.